He was 14 years old when the state of South Carolina put him in an electric chair. No physical evidence, no defense witnesses. A trial that lasted less than 3 hours. In 1944, America executed a child, George Stinney Jr., and for 70 years, the truth stayed buried. But what really happened in that courtroom? And why did a judge finally overturn his conviction decades later? Stay with me because the full story is far darker than the headline suggests. By the end of this video, you will understand how a boy was condemned by fear, racism, and a broken justice system, and why his case is now cited as one of the gravest miscarriages of justice in American history. In 1944, Alkaloo, South Carolina, was a town divided by railroad tracks. On one side white families, on the other black families, including the Stinneys. George Stinney Jr. was small for his age, quiet, known to help his father with chores. By every account, he was just a normal 14-year-old boy. But in the Jim Crow South, innocence was fragile, especially for black children. And then, 2 girls went missing. On March 23, 1944, 11-year-old Betty June Binnicker and 7-year-old Mary Emma Thames disappeared while riding their bicycles. Their bodies were found the next day in a ditch, brutally murdered. The town demanded answers, and it demanded them fast. Within hours, police focused on one name. George Stinney Jr. was arrested that same day. No warrant, no parents present, no lawyer. Police claimed George confessed during interrogation, but there was no written confession, no recording, and no witnesses who heard him say it. His family was driven out of town, immediately forced to flee under threat of violence. George never saw them again. What happened next would seal his fate. George's trial began. Less than a month later, the jury, all white. The defense attorney, a tax commissioner with no criminal trial experience, defense witnesses called none. The prosecution presented police testimony claiming a confession again, undocumented. The defense offered nothing in response. The entire trial lasted under 3 hours. After 10 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict, guilty. The sentence was death. But here asks the question no one asked in 1944. How does a child weighing barely 90 pounds commit a crime that required adult strength? That question would echo decades later. On June 16, 1944, George Stinney Jr. was executed by electric chair. He was so small, the executioners had to place a Bible under him to make contact with the electrodes. The mask slipped from his face when the electricity surged, revealing tears. He was 14 years old, and the state called it justice. For decades, the case faded into obscurity. But doubts never disappeared. There was no murder weapon. No blood on George's clothes, no motive that made sense. And witnesses later said George was with them at the time of the crime. The story survived only through family memory. Until one historian reopened the file. What they uncovered changed everything. In 2014, 70 years after George's execution, a South Carolina judge reviewed the case. The ruling was devastating. George Stinney Jr. had been denied due process, effective legal counsel, and a fair trial. The judge called it a fundamental miscarriage of justice. His conviction was officially vacated. But the damage was irreversible. So what does justice mean when it arrives after death? George Stinney Jr.'s case is now taught in law schools. It represents the deadly consequences of racial bias, mob pressure, and a justice system that values speed over truth. He remains the youngest person executed in the United States in the 20th century. Not because he was proven guilty, but because the system never cared if he was innocent. George Stinney Jr. was cleared, but never freed, remembered, but never returned. And the question remains, how many other names were erased? Before anyone thought to ask if the system was wrong,